Okay, when we're starting off, it's probably going to be easiest if we graph. By the way, I'm not going to really allow a lot of wait time, so if you didn't catch something, feel free to rewind it or pause it if you need to. If you think you get the hang of it, then you can pause the video and then try it on your own and check your answers. So whatever works for you is how you can use this video. So I'm always going to do the graph part first because we're pretty familiar with that. So if I have this set notation of x less than 3 or x is greater than or equal to 5, I'm going to put the 3 on my number line and the 5 on my number line. If I'm less than 3, it's not going to be a filled in circle, and I'm going to be going to the left. And greater than or equal to 5 means it will be a filled in circle going to the right. Interval notation is going to become what we use almost all the time. So we start with the infinity. So since this graph is going all the way to the left, it's going to negative infinity. If I kept going, my numbers would get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So we say negative infinity. And we use parentheses because I'm never actually going to equal infinity, negative infinity. And then I go up to a positive 3, and I'm not including it, so I would put another set of parentheses. And then, since I have two pieces of my graph, I put union. I put a U for union. And then, since I am starting with a filled-in circle, I'm going to put a straight bracket, 5, and that is going to keep going up to positive infinity. Once again, that will be parentheses. I'm going to write that a little more clearly down here. So parentheses, negative infinity, 3, parentheses, U for union, straight bracket, 5 to positive infinity, parentheses. So looking at this next one, it's giving me the interval notation. So once again, I put all my endpoints on here. 0, 1. Spacing isn't super important to me, as you can tell. Now, in my first one, the negative 4 and the 0 are both open circles because they were using parentheses in the interval notation. And we're saying my first things can be anywhere between negative 4 and 0. And then I use another set of parentheses because, or I use another open circle because I have parentheses, and it's going to go all the way to the right because of the positive infinity. So now what we want to do is write that in set builder notation. This last piece is pretty easy to write. This is where x is greater than 1. This other part, I think it's helpful if we think of it this way. You have your x's are in between negative 4 and 0. And I want x's to be less than 0, but greater than negative 4. So your inequalities should be going in the same direction. They should either be both less thans or both greater thans. So put your endpoints and then decide if you need the equal to part. Since they're open, I don't. So my set builder notation would be negative 4 is less than x is less than 0, or x is greater than 1. That's a great bracket. Okay. Next one. So interval notation, I'm going to do a straight bracket because of the negative 4. And I'm going up to a negative 2, and I'm going to close that with another straight bracket because I have a filled-in circle. So in terms of set builder notation, I have the x's between negative 4 and negative 2, and these are going to have the equal to because of the filled-in circles. Negative 4 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to negative 2. Next, once again, I like to start with the graph. So my lower endpoint is going to be -5, and my upper endpoint is going to be 4. My -5 is going to be filled in, 4 is going to be open, and I want the x's that are between that. So this has a pretty easy translation to interval notation. I do a straight bracket, -5, comma, 4, parentheses. So if I just have one piece on my graph, then my interval notation is just going to be one piece. When I look at this interval notation, it looks a little weird, so I want to think about graphing it. The only number it talks about is 2, and I notice you can't have it ever equal to 2. But I'm going to go all the way to the left and all the way to the right. So that means my set notation would just be x cannot equal 2. This is what we call a hole. In this next one, I already have the graph done. So I have two pieces to my graph. I have a straight bracket, -1 to +1, parentheses, union. Now I just have a point. So if I'm doing an interval notation and I just have a point, well, clearly I can include that point, but it's not going to go anywhere. So it's not really going to have a comma in there. It's just going to be straight bracket to straight bracket. In set builder notation, we would be saying x is between 0 and -1, and then I look at my circles. The -1 is filled in, so that's going to be an equal to. So formally, we would say -1 is less than or equal to x is less than 0, or x equals 2. So that point is just saying x equals 2 right here. Okay. Start with your graph. Okay, I have a -3, and I'm going to be doing less than -3, or x is between -2 and +3, and I can equal both of those. So my interval notation would be going left to -infinity. Make sure you're using parentheses. I'm going up to -3. I cannot equal -3, so that's going to be a parentheses. Union. Both of my next endpoints are filled in, so I would do a straight bracket, -2, 3, and then another straight bracket. My first endpoint is going to be -4, and since it has the straight bracket, that means that endpoint will be filled in, and -infinity means it's going to the left. That's union -2, which has a parentheses, so open circle, going to +infinity. So in my set builder notation, that would be x is less than or equal to -4, or, since I have two pieces, it's going to be an or, x is greater than -2. So hopefully going between the graph and the set builder, it seems pretty familiar. Basically, the set builder, we're just adding these brackets, which indicate that they are a set. Just as a side note, I haven't been writing the this weird thing in there. This means x in the set of all real numbers such that. And that's the really formal notation, but we don't really need to worry about that. But it's important that you see it just so later in college and stuff you don't freak out when you see it. So x, all x's in the set of all real numbers such that is what that little stream of symbols means. Okay, this is a nice one for interval notation. So my first interval is going from -1 to 0, the hard brackets, the straight brackets, union, parentheses, 0 to 2, straight bracket. And I'm going to have two inequality things going on here. So the first piece is I want x between 0 and -1, and it can equal both of them. And the second one, I want x in between 1 and 2, but it can only equal 2. So my step builder notation would be -1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 0, or 1 less than x less than or equal to 2. This one I ran out of a little space, so sorry. Hope that doesn't bother you too much. I start at -2. It's going to be a filled-in circle because it has the line underneath. And we're saying less than, so that's going to go to -infinity to the left. And then I want to go from -1 to +4. And both of those are going to be open because they are just less thans. So my interval notation would be parentheses, -infinity, up to -2, and that -2 is included, union, we're not going to include the -1, and we're not going to include the +4. So that's it. Go back and review any of the ones that you need to do. On the worksheet that goes with this, one of the sections is the 6 through 10 that we just did, so you won't need to do that, and I'll show you on the key on my website which section that is. Thanks. Email me with any questions.